Hello, this is Kamran Ali. Today I'm talking about deep structure. The concept of deep structure has been presented by a famous linguist, Noam Chomsky, in his book Aspects of Theory for Syntax. Now, there have been multiple definitions in the literature regarding the deep structure, or if you just look for some information on the net, you may get confused. But there are basically five definitions, right, which are in line with uh, the, the concept of deep structure presented by Noam Chomsky in his book. Today, I'll be talking about two of them. The first one is the deep structure is the output of the phrase structure rules. Second, it undergoes transformational rules and gives out the surface structure. Now, let me explain these two definitions to improve your understanding on the deep structure. Let me clear all of this first. Let me use my mouse and let's go ahead. Okay, here we have two structures, surface and heap, and we can see that it says this diagram says that surface structure form is used in communication, or the form which is used in communication is surface structure, the surface structure, right? Whereas the deep structure is the underlying meaning of that form. Now it's just like that. For example, if I say the work has been done by me. Now let's suppose if I write this sentence and all of you uh, may point out that this is a passive voice. Yes, of course, it is a passive voice. All right. If I ask you that, what does it mean? You may think the active counterpart, or think of the active counterpart, and that is the person means to say over here, I have done my work, this is the counter, you know, yeah, this is the counterpart of this passive voice, that is the active voice, right? So I have done my work. Now, when native speakers they hear, right, okay, such sentences, right, which basically uh, have been structured differently, different than the simplest version, right, okay, which is in here. In this case, this is actually an active counterpart, right, okay. So they think, or they interpret this in the simplest manner, right? So they very quickly understand that, okay, the person means to say that he has done his work. Now, Noam Chomsky is of the view that many native speakers, right, okay, in, yeah, many native speakers, they think of the meaning, right, of such structures, of such sentences which have gone through transformational rules in the simplest, right? So they think of the meaning, right, okay, in the simplest version. So this is not the simplest one. This has gone some sort of transformation, right? All right. So, and the simplest version is this one, because probably we don't think that this version, deep structure, right, has got any sort of transformation. All right. So, what you really need to understand that there are some sentences, okay, at the surface level, right? Uh, they give, the meaning, which probably, right, would have been given by the counterpart or the simpler version. For example, over here we have this one, we have the simpler version, right? Here we have got the simpler version, right, in the form of active voice, whereas passive voice is rather the version which has been driven from uh, the simplest version, that is active voice, right? Okay, so this is may seem to you a little confusing, as the topic is, right. So let me elaborate all of this and discuss. Okay, let me clear all of this. Okay, so here we go. Now this is one. I'll say this is one and this is two, right? For so you understand better. You sit deep structure and sit surface structure. And the question arises, why? Why am I calling this one deep, this one surface? Why not this one surface and this one deep? And how do I know that this one is deep? Right? Okay. Now, basically, a sentence has a pattern, right? And that is usually, understood via phrase, structure, rules. And these phrase structure rules have been given over here. That means when we have a sentence, for example, I read a book. Now, this is a sentence. So, if I apply these rules, I can analyze this sentence in this manner, that I divide this sentence into two big units, right? One is a noun phrase, that is I, and in here, in this case, we just have a pronoun, right? And so this is I. I can split this sentence into two broad categories: noun phrase and a verb phrase. Now here I can see that we have a verb, right? Okay, main verb, and finally verb, and that is read. Okay, and here we can see that we have a noun phrase again. So we divide a verb phrase. Basically, we divide a verb phrase into two broad categories, NP and VP. And this VP gets divided into a noun phrase, right? So we have a noun phrase here, and then we got a determiner, because noun phrase gets divided into two, right? So we have got a determiner, that is a, and then a noun, that is book. So this is determiner here, and again, once again, here we have a noun, and that is book. So this is how we analyze the sentence. Now, Noam Chomsky says that this sentence, right? Okay, for example, this one, right? Okay, if I analyze this one, you sit, is a sentence. So if I analyze it, right, it uh, divides into two broad units, that is noun phrase and a verb phrase, and we know that here you is a noun. Let me clear this one first, please. Okay, here we go again. So you is what? A noun. Right. I'm writing it over here, and this is a verb, and we can write it over here. Now, this sentence, right, has gone through some sort of transformation. That is, we can see over here that the noun phrase has been omitted. So when we talk to a native person, right, and we say sit, he basically, or probably, thinks that, the speaker means you sit. So this is the deep structure, the basic structure that strikes him that moment. So the meaning lies here. And he understands, okay, this is what you mean. Because he understands that, some sort of transformation, creativity is involved here, right? Okay. So he thinks in terms of, uh, you know, this basic structure, right? And understands immediately that this has been transformed, changed, but it means, you know, you sit instead of sit, right? I hope you understand this. So a deep structure undergoes some sort of transformation. A, B, deep structure follows the phrase structure rules. Now, if we just focus on that, it follows the phrase structure rules. Okay, if we keep this definition in mind, then probably even a surface structure is the deepest structure. But if we look at the another definition, which says that it goes some sort of, transformation, then of course sit is the surface structure and use sit is the deepest structure. All right. Okay, now let's go ahead and see what do we have. Now, here I have written down some sentences for you to guess which one probably is the deep structure or which one is the surface structure. And please, if a sentence is following, right, this phrase structure rules, right, okay, then that sentence can also be called a surface, oh no, sorry, a deep structure, right, okay, or it can also be called to have a deep structure rather, okay. He didn't come along because he didn't want to. He didn't come along because he didn't want to come along. Now it seems like that here we can see some changes. So if somebody says he didn't come along because he didn't want to, the native speaker would understand that he means to say he didn't come along because he didn't want to come along. Now, this come along, right, has been omitted here. So, if we apply the definition that, the surface structure, right, is the basically outcome of transformational, application of transformational rules onto the deep structure, then this one is, we can say that this one is the surface structure and this one is the deep structure. And if I analyze both of them and I show that how the phrasal rule or rules, right, okay, are being applied, okay, in both. Even in that case, if I do it so, that means I show it through through tree diagram, okay, then of course they both can be said, deep structures, right? So remember that we are applying two definitions here. He has given a gift to her. He has given her a gift. Now, which one is the deep? Which one is, um, you know, the surface structure? Right? So we can see that in the second one, two has been omitted. So this one is the deep structure because this has undergone, some changes. Okay, and this one is what? A surface structure. Now, Noam Chomsky is of the view that, like, you know, the phrasal rules, the phrase structure rules, right, should be applied, right, okay, when we are transforming the basic unit, right, okay, or the kernel sentence into uh, a structural, surface structure, you know. So we got to basically apply, you know, what you call that phrase structure rules, right, okay, one thing, or transformational rules and whatever, right? So over here, we can see that this he has got a noun phrase. This has got a noun phrase. Here we have a verb phrase also. We can see has given and then a gift. Okay, so we can see here again a noun phrase and then prepositional phrase and a noun phrase again, right? So that means, and over here also it's NP and it's VP, and then we have over here a noun phrase. So the phrase is structure rules, right, on are at work basically, right, okay. So this means that these both sentences are meaningful because they are following phrase structure rules. If they don't, let's suppose if after the transformation, a sentence doesn't follow the phrase structure rules, right, okay, then probably it is not grammatically correct, right? So for a sentence to be grammatically correct, we need to have the phrase structure rules at work, right? This is something which you have to keep in mind, right? Okay, now I have written a book. If I ask you whether this is a surface structure or a deep structure, you can immediately now answer that this is a deep structure because it's still in its raw form, right? It hasn't undergone any sort of transformation. But if I say a book has been written by me, this is a different form. Of course, it's passive voice, and we can see that there are changes in the basic unit, okay, which is the active form basically. So we have taken this object, we have brought in the beginning position, and that is the subject basically now, right? But actually, right, okay, when we think it in the term of active voice, this is an object, right? So that's what he's trying to say, that there are many structures, right, okay, at the surface level they are carrying a different form, but they have been driven from a basic unit which he calls the deep structure, right? So there are two things. If you have analyzed, applied, a phrase structure rules, okay, and we're showing it through the diagram, we are analyzing, the deep structure of that sentence. And at the same time, if we have a sentence which has been driven from the basic unit, right, okay, that sentence should be called or should be considered having a surface structure, right? And it must have been driven from a deep structure, right? I hope you have understood all of this. If you have any queries, you can ask me during our live session, right? Thank you very much. Take care of yourself.